Welcome everyone to our build session, Streamlining Map Development Part 1. I know we've had a lot of sessions and still more to come, so we appreciate everyone who's taken time out to join us. Um, I do want to introduce our speakers. We have Matthew Anthony, who is a senior product manager for our Maps org, and we also have Rebecca Heron, who is an engineering manager for Maps. And Rebecca is here to actually demo this story around streamlining your map development, part one. A few logistics before we get to the main event here. Um, these sessions are recorded. And actually, Rebecca, could you go to the next slide?
Yep, sorry.
These sessions are being recorded and they will be available to everyone who is registered. So after the event, if you go to the Zoom console where you're heading right now to sort of access all the sessions and join the sessions, if you go back to that Zoom console, the recordings will be there after the event. So you can access any. We have 60 sessions this week, so it's unlikely, right, that you'll be able to make all of them. So if you miss something, definitely head back there after the event and get the recording. Captions are currently available in multiple languages. You can see the image here on the right if you want to do add captions. You can submit questions through the Zoom Q&A feature. So in your bar, you can see the picture on the slide here, but in your Zoom bar, there should be a button for Q&A. If you have a question, just type it right there into the Q&A. I will be monitoring that the whole session. And so I may actually answer that directly in the Q&A box for you. We may also answer it live at the end of the session, just depending on where we're at. Um, Use the Q&A. I am monitoring the chat as well. However, I check the Q&A first and go there directly for questions first. So that's your best chance of getting something answered. Finally, like I said, we do have 60 sessions. So a lot of content this week. So if you want to find out more about what's being presented the rest of today, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, head to mapbox.com/build and you'll be able to check those things out. And then with that, I want to pass it off to the team to get started.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. All right. So this is Streamlined Map Development. Hi, my name is Rebecca. I'm an engineering manager for Maps APIs, and I'm here to demonstrate how to use our new tool, Data Workbench, to upload custom data, edit MTS recipes, and publish a tile set before loading it into a web app. So shout out to the entire Data Workbench team who's working super hard on that. Matthew and I are representing them today.
Cool. Thanks, Rebecca. And hey, everyone, I'm Matthew Anthony. I'm a senior product manager on the Maps org, primarily focused on our developer tools like Studio, the Mapbox console platform, and the Data Workbench. Today, I'll mostly be observing, jumping in on the chat, chiming in if there are anything I want to highlight. And then we have a part 2 tomorrow that I'm going to plug that I'll be leading that's more focused on Studio and the style editor.
Sweet. All right, so like this says, we're going to start by just reviewing a couple of concepts to make sure that people who are brand new to Mapbox are able to follow along. So the first one is like how do you create a digital map with Mapbox? Very basically, you need 3 ingredients. You need to have some data, some formatted geospatial data. You need some instructions for styling that data, and also some icons and fonts optionally to support that styling. Then Mapbox GL consumes these inputs and makes some kind of an interactive map in your digital application. So today we're going to be building a web app using Mapbox GL.js. And today we're going to focus on this first ingredient, this tile set ingredient. So what are tile sets? Tile sets are geographic data broken up into uniform grid of square tiles. These tile sets are used in Mapbox libraries and SDKs to render maps in mobile or web apps. We also have the Mapbox Tiling Service, or MTS, which is a service that turns raw geospatial data into vector or raster tile sets using an MTS recipe. And then last, MTS recipes, which are JSON configuration files that determine how your raw data should be transformed into a tile set. So some examples of that might be the minimum and maximum zoom levels at which you want features in your tile sets to be visible. But we'll see some more examples of different types of recipes and things you can do with recipes in this demo. All right. So now I'm gonna demo how to use Data Workbench to upload and preview your custom data, validate your recipes, and publish your MTS tile set. So this is a live demo on an app that we're launching next week. So, give me some grace, but we'll work on this together. And we're going to validate our recipes, publish a tile set, and then view it in this app called Ride Home that I've vibe coded. I'm pretty sure the engineers of Data Workbench will get a laugh out of how good it is, but it definitely serves its purpose here. So we can see how you might build some stuff that interacts with maps in a web app. All right, so today we're using Data Workbench, which will be on the left side under the data manager when you go into the Mapbox Studio. And we'll be adding some real estate data for our app called Ride Home that helps apartment seekers determine the bikeability of available apartments in Chicago. So we're going to need some real estate and bike layers to do this. So to use Data Workbench, the first thing you need to do is upload some data. So you can see that Data Workbench can receive a variety of common geospatial formats here. So for our first release, Data Workbench is going to work on common vector formats, and raster formats such as GeoTIFF will be redirected to our legacy tileset viewer after being processed into a tileset. So I'm going to upload some Chicago apartment data into the Data Workbench and open the viewer. So here we can see some Chicago apartment data applied over the city. I can sort of zoom in and out and interact with that data. I can pick specific features in my data set to look at, or I could pick a couple and zoom in and out, which is kind of a nifty feature. But in order to set some context around this apartment data, we'd like to understand which apartments are accessible to bike infrastructure in Chicago for our app called Ride Home. So in order to do that, I'm going to add a data set of designated bike lanes in Chicago. So here we have some bike routes data that we'll be able to visualize. So this is some line data for the purposes of our app. And then I'm going to add a couple of point data sets that include bike racks and divvy stations. Divvy stations are like a Chicago bike share app that you can use to rent bikes in Chicago. All right, got some divvy stations. And then last, I think I'll add some Chicago neighborhood data. So we have this CSV of neighborhood data. So you can see that these source data files are in different formats, but we're using them all to build a single data set or tile set in the Data Workbench. And you can interact with these layers, click on different features and things like that. All right, so for people familiar with Mapbox Studio tools, this data is not yet processed into a tile set. It's just a live tiled preview of your data before you create a tile set. And so now that we have this data previewed, I feel like it's feeling pretty noisy. Like when we zoom out, there's just a lot of points on the screen, a lot of different layers, kind of hard to make sense of. And so we're going to go over into the publish screen where we can start editing MTS recipes for each of these layers before we tile our data. So this part of the workflow allows you to get a live preview of how your data will look when it's tiled using the MTS recipe. So you can use the MTS recipe docs to review and use like the entire specification here. For this demo, we're going to try out some samples of that. So since apartment data is kind of our primary data layer here, I don't think we're going to do much to it. We might just review what's in here. It's just a min zoom and a max zoom, and then minimal simplification for a point data set. But maybe for the bike rack data, which is in this teal color, there's just a lot of points. It's feeling really busy when I zoom out. It's kind of hard to make sense of individual points at lower zoom levels. So I think we're going to use a filter to filter out the bike rack data at lower zoom levels. So I'm going to paste in a snippet that does that. So this is basically adding a filter so that at zoom levels higher or more zoomed out than 11, we'll no longer be able to see that bike rack data. So you can see that teal data disappears when we get below zoom level 11. Maybe I want to do zoom level 10 actually. What does that look like? A little farther out. Maybe zoom level 11 is better. I think that looks a little nicer, a little faster. All right. Let's see. For the Divvy bike station data, so that's the data in pink right now. I think when I zoomed out, earlier, there's like some data points up here that are not within the city limits of Chicago. So I'm just going to clean that up by adding a bounding box around the features that I want. So the bounding box feature of the MTS recipe lets you specify a bounding box you want to have all of your data within. So, here we just kind of chopped off the set of data up here by drawing a box around Chicago that kind of skirts this top line. And you can kind of, let's see, I think you can see that in action. Let's see, by just editing this a little bit. Other one. Maybe it's like right here. Wrong direction. Oh, okay. We're gonna move on past that so I don't mess myself up. Oh no, it cut off the bottom. There we go. Oops. All right. So now this covers the whole city of Chicago. So there you go. Bounding box in action. All right. So for the Chicago neighborhood data, I think that the level of granularity provided in the tile set was a little high. So if I look at the neighborhood data here, I can see that there's a primary neighborhood and a secondary neighborhood. So the primary neighborhood's a little more granular, a little more specific. The secondary neighborhood creates like slightly bigger land areas, might make it a little nicer for filtering in our app. So I'm going to union the neighborhood data by the secondary neighbor attribute so that there are a few less individual polygons representing that data set. So I'm just going to drop this in here. And then there are now just like a few less polygons representing that background data. All right. Last is the bike lane data. So, or bike route data. Here we have a bunch of bike routes. And so normally MTS simplifies the geometry of features so that each zoom level corresponds to the resolution of display on the screen. I would like to make sure that at the top zoom level, we're using the no simplification of this feature set so that when we over zoom, it still has some level of granularity. So when you publish a tile set with a max zoom of 12, for example, you're able to continue viewing the tile set data in your app at higher zoom levels, but the data resolution stays at the max zoom level of your published tile set. So by setting the max resolution to 1 at zoom level 12, I'll see something a little more detailed when I zoom in past 12. And then this would be the resolution at the other zoom levels. So just like for demonstration purposes or like to test that out, we reduce the resolution. You can see that zoom level 12. Reduction of accuracy or of detail in the bike lane data. It's a little less curvy. All right, so now that we got to preview all of those layers, I think it's time to process this tile set. So last thing you do in Data Workbench is process your tile set with all of these recipe changes. So for the purposes of this demo, you know, in cooking show demos, they sometimes have a casserole in the oven that's already baked. And so for the purposes of this demo, I also have a pre-baked casserole prepared that I made a couple days ago with some of the same changes. So we're going to use this tile set for our web app. So I'm just going to make sure that we're using this tile set ID in our web app and run it really quickly. All right. So now it's time to take a look at the Ride Home app. So here we can see all of the, oh, not all of the layers we had before. All of the layers we had before. So this little tiny yellow set of dots is all the bike racks in Chicago. We have this purple data, which represents the Divvy bike stations. These larger teal data points represent apartments that are available for rent. And then this app shows a couple of things you might be able to do with GLJS to incorporate map data into your functionality. So here we have like a bikeability score, which rates bikeability based on nearby bike infrastructure of the apartment. So some of these must have like really good bikeability, but this one, you know, there's not immediately a divvy station next to it or a bike lane directly next to it. So it's a little less good. And then we have a stat of the nearest divvy station using some distance functions. And then we have just like a little apartment pop-up that we can look at and look at some details of the apartment. So what you see here, it's pretty ugly, right? It's vibe coded. It's not very nice. It has a little bit of interactivity, but the map is just not very responsive, not very nice to look at. Hard to really see what's going on here, especially downtown. The data is just really noisy and messy. So tomorrow, Matthew will be coming back to style this data using the style editor and showing off some of the new features that Mapbox is offering in order to add style, responsiveness, interactivity to your map to make this app look a little, I don't know, more consumable. How would you say that, Matthew? And so it'll look a lot nicer tomorrow. But this is kind of step one. So here we can see our custom tile set that we published using Data Workbench. The background map is just using standard v4 right out of the box. The front of the map is using a little bit of basic style, just enough to get these layers on the map. And so let's see, if we just flip over to my IDE really quick, we can look at how that's laid out on the map. All right, so basically we're just initializing a map using a token and adding a couple of basic controls. So this is very simple. There are great tutorials on Mapbox's website that walk you through how to add map to a web app. Thank you, Matthew, for sharing that. That's great. Exactly what I was going to say. And then we, for this demo right now, we're adding custom layers to the map because this tile set doesn't have a style yet. So because we don't have a style, we need to initialize some layers on this map from our custom data source. And so here you can see we're adding some neighborhoods data and just a very basic amount of styling to get it on the map. Another data set with, or another layer with rental properties, that's just point data, and we gave it a random color and size. And so this is kind of how you would add data to your map if you don't have a style created already. But as we'll see tomorrow, you don't really need any of this custom configuration in your app in order to have something beautiful when you use the style editor and publish a style. So there's that. All right. I feel like that is really all you need to do to use Data Workbench to publish a tile set. So I guess I'll check back in and see if there were any questions about that. And see what do people want to know?
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. That was awesome. I do want to reiterate what Rebecca said at the beginning of the session. So this is a new tool that is currently being we're releasing in the private beta in about a week. So it'll be tested by some select customers. Matthew, do you want to plug? I remember you plugged an email address to reach out with questions about this in a previous session. Can you just put that into the chat? If you want to be considered for access to the data workbench to help us test and help us make it better and ready for general availability, you can message that email address that Matthew put into the chat. But just to reiterate, this is not currently available. Like you can't go onto your account and find the console right now.
Yeah. Also,
Okay.
you just sort of jogged my memory. Something I really want to highlight here is that this app is using all of the existing MTS functionality, but it's making sure that you have the feedback you need in order to quickly develop a tile set and a map with MTS. Trying to remove some of those pain points with, previously you might have had to publish a tile set to see how a recipe impacts the tile set, but now you can use this tool to preview that recipe before you publish your tile set. And so this is using live tiling functionality that the Data Workbench engineering team has designed for Mapbox, which is pretty powerful.
That kind of answered one of the questions that we have, Rebecca, but I wanted to see if there's anything else. So how is this different than like the way that you just bring data into Mapbox Studio right now?
Do you want to take that, Matthew, or you want me to do it?
Yeah, I can take that and then you can jump in if I miss anything. I think the biggest change with the data workbench is under the hood, it's using the Mapbox Tiling Service. It's using MTS to publish those tile sets. And MTS is our sort of best in class recommended service for tiling. It's the one we're actively investing in and maintaining. It works really great for large data, like to performantly load really large data. MTS is the best tool you can use. And um, I think another thing I was going to touch on, which might be a separate question, Greg, is the next iteration of the data workbench is going to start to incorporate editing functionality, which is something you cannot do with tilesets today. So I think starting to invest more into both the data workbench being this interface for publishing MTS tilesets, but also making edits to the underlying data and continuing to invest in MTS.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Um, we had another question going live here a little bit, Rebecca, but we watched you at the very beginning. You hit an upload button, or we're looking at it right now. You hit an upload button and you uploaded a data set. And then it also looked like maybe were you like dragging and dropping files at some point? Could you talk about that a little bit?
Totally, yeah. So I started a project by hitting this upload button so people could see what it looks like or see what file formats the Data Workbench accepts. But in order to start a Data Workbench project, you can drag and drop a file directly onto this screen or into an active project. So here's our project that we worked on just now. So I can go like what day is it even today? Is it the 9th? I think. So we have our demo file, but we can drag and drop additional data sets into here. I think I have a data set that shows like all of the murals in Chicago or something like that. Let's see, all the library locations. Um,
And while you look for that, Matthew did mention in the chat that you can actually drag in multiple files at once if you would like, just to sort of slightly speed up your workflow a little bit.
Totally, yes, you can. Let's see. This one's got CTA lines. I think that's kind of cool. That's probably loading right now. So we can go look at the rail lines of the CTA as well. But yeah, you can drag and drop several files at once and add them to the active project.
Awesome. And then another question we had, did you do anything to prepare this data before bringing it into the workbench, or can you just kind of take the raw data and drag it in?
Pretty much you can take the raw data and drag it in with like a little asterisk after that. Obviously it needs like lat long information and a couple of other things to be valid geospatial data, but the engineers on the Data Workbench team have built pretty powerful converter to help us ingest and normalize this data very quickly. So it's pretty flexible as to what it takes.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna keep it rolling here. Will Data Workbench allow us to leverage public data directly, i.e., that a public agency serves as a REST endpoint, and we can then tile and use it in our app? Matthew, it looked like maybe you wanted to answer this one.
Yeah, I'll take this and then Rebecca. I mean, I think because you had experience using public data for this example, you should talk a little bit about that experience. But Michael, it doesn't support connecting directly to REST API endpoints yet, but we're starting to form our 2026 roadmap, and that's in the backlog.
Yep, we're kind of shopping around the idea of building some sort of a data connector, a database connector to add to the MTS ecosystem. So we don't have a timeline for that yet, but gathering interest.
Okay, another one. Is there any cost to this?
I can take this one. So yes, the Data Workbench uses Mapbox Tiling Service, MTS, under the hood. So it's priced based on how MTS is priced, which does come with a free monthly tier of 20 compute units, which is a it should be enough to do evaluation and testing.
Okay, awesome. Those were all the questions that we had in the Q&A. I will give everyone about 1 more minute to add any questions in if you'd like. So this is sort of the last call for questions. We do have a little extra time, so we are happy to answer them. But yeah, 1 more minute. And while we wait to see if anyone has more questions, I just want to give one more plug. So, like Rebecca said, this map was built using the workbench, and it's in sort of a semi-styled state right now. And so tomorrow, during the Streamline Map Development Session Part 2, Matthew will be going in and demoing how to use the style editor to just make this feel a little more crisp and ultimately a little more useful for your end users. So that'll be, I believe, this same time, but just tomorrow afternoon, Eastern time, at least, where I am. So be sure to join that session to see this story come together and really round it out. Of course, like I said in the beginning, we have 60 sessions this week, and we're only through almost 2 days now. So the majority of sessions are still yet to come. So make sure you go to the Zoom event console for build and check out what's coming on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And please join us for some other sessions. I didn't get any other questions, so I want to say thank you to everyone who attended, and thank you to Matthew and Rebecca.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everyone.